Hello everybody and welcome back. So I'm going to start this video by wishing that all of you are safe and healthy and that you're doing okay during these tough times. Now I know that a lot is happening right now. Day by day things are changing, and I'm sure that you guys are being affected by the coronavirus and all of the things that are happening in the world right now. What I want to encourage you to do in this video is to try to see some light in this situation and take advantage as much as possible of the spare time that you're going to be given or that you're going to have in the next weeks and months. And that's why what I'm going to do here is share with you my top 5 programming projects that you can work on while you're quarantined or while you're isolated. Now, these projects are going to be a little bit different than some of the ones I've mentioned in previous videos because I'm going to assume that you're going to have a lot of time to work on these. So I'm going to suggest some bigger, more impressive projects that are going to look great on a resume, build your skills, and allow you to learn new tools and technologies. So we'll get into that in just a second, but just a quick word from our sponsor. I need to thank Simplilearn for sponsoring this video and giving you all a discount on their data science master's course that has been co-developed with IBM. This course is comprised of 6 full courses covering key technologies like R, SAS, Python, Tableau, Hadoop, and Spark. While working through this course, you'll develop 15 real-life projects and master over 30 in-demand skills. You'll work with advanced analytics tools such as Pandas, use data collection tools like Apache HBase, and learn ETL tools like Hive, Pig, and Scoop. By purchasing this course, you'll have lifetime access to all of the course content and lectures, receive $1,200 USD worth of IBM Cloud credits, and have access to the IBM Cloud platforms like IBM Watson for 24/7 practice. Upon completion, you'll receive certificates from IBM and Simplilearn to testify to your skills as an expert in data science. Click the link in the description to get started. So the first type of project that I like to recommend to everyone is something that has to do with web development. Now this can be simple, this can be complex, but what I usually recommend for at least beginning is to pick some kind of application that you've already built and try to recreate that in a web-based version. So maybe you have like a text-based sorting algorithm, or maybe you have a text-based inventory system, or maybe you even already built a graphical user interface, but it's for a specific operating system, or maybe it's even an iPhone app or something like that. Try to take that and convert that into a web-based application. Now, this is going to mean that you don't have to write nearly as much code as if you were doing this project from scratch, and you already have something to kind of base your project off of. So what this is going to allow you to do is kind of skip all of the grunt work with getting all this back-end stuff functioning and just focus on learning how web development actually works and how you can serve these kind of applications on the web. Now, obviously, this is going to involve the use of HTML and CSS, although I'm pretty sure from at least talking to a lot of different programmers, most people have a basic knowledge of this, and if you don't, it's going to be pretty easy to pick that up. So some frameworks that I like to recommend, at least to get started with web development, if you know anything about Python, is Flask. Now, Flask is a really simple and great web framework for doing applications like I just described. Something that's a few different pages, it's not crazy complex. Maybe you have a database, but you don't need to, and it's just really easy to get set up. Again, it's a Python backend web framework. Then from there, all you need to do is pick what you want to use for the front end. So with Flask, it's way easier just to use custom HTML and CSS and your own JavaScript. But if you don't want to style the web page yourself, you can always use a framework like Bootstrap. Now, Bootstrap is a really easy to use CSS framework. Essentially, it allows you to use some built-in classes. It allows you to do some animations, and you can make a really good looking website without having much knowledge of HTML and CSS. And personally, what I always do is I set up my Python backend, my Flask backend, which is really easy to get set up. And then I style the entire front end using Bootstrap. And Bootstrap has a really great website that has a ton of different examples of all of the classes that they have and the different usages. So it's really easy to create anything that you want. So that's my project idea number 1. Take some application you've already created and turn it into a web-based app. Obviously, there's so many different ways to do this. Let me know if you have any other frameworks that you think are better for this, but anyone that knows Python, I always recommend Flask. If you want something a bit more complex, you could go with Django. And these are great frameworks. They're fairly easy to learn. And once you learn them, it's going to allow you to do so many different things. So my second project idea is to implement some popular algorithms. Now, I know this is quite vague and I'm not giving you any real examples, although I will later, but this is a really great way to show people that not only do you know how to program, can you create a project, but you can also implement algorithms and you know a bit about algorithms and data structures. And this looks really good on a resume where you have a project that's impressive on its own, but also implements a popular algorithm that shows, yes, you understand how this algorithm works and you were good enough to actually go in and implement that yourself. Now, this isn't really that difficult. There's tons of explanations online on how these algorithms work, and I guarantee you'll learn a ton as you actually go through and try to program it yourself. So some examples of this are something like a pathfinding algorithm. So maybe you make a web interface, or maybe you make some kind of interface where a user can pick a start point and an end point, and then the algorithm runs and it finds the shortest path between these 2 points. That's a great example of something that I've personally done that I think looks really good on a resume. Another example of implementing a popular algorithm is something like stable matching. Now, many people don't know what stable matching is, but let's say we have a bunch of employers and we have a bunch of students. The employers rank the students based on who they want to hire, and the students rank the employers based on who they want to work for. Well, given that information, how can we find the best possible match for all of the employers and for all of the students so that each person gets their top choice, within reason, right? Gets the best possible choice that they can have. This is a really interesting problem, and that's called stable matching. And that's another example of something that you can implement. So pick kind of any real world problem, anything you want, pick an algorithm that you want to try to implement, and then try to tie it into a project. And that's a great way to showcase your skills and to have a really nice resume project and something to talk about in potential interviews. So my next project idea is aimed towards those of you that really like hardware and a little bit more hands-on. And what I'm going to recommend for you guys is to do something where you interface with a microcontroller. So obviously, little microcontrollers like this, you can program to do all kinds of crazy things. So a project I've actually done with this is a live security system. So what I actually did was hooked up a little USB camera to this device, and this is a NVIDIA Jetson Nano, by the way. It's a little bit on the higher end when it comes to microcontrollers. And I ran a facial detection and recognition script on this, so when you walked near the camera, it would pick up who you are, and it would track and log which person was in which room at what time. Now, with that kind of information, you can do whatever you want. You can create some kind of charts, you can create graphs, you can make a website to show all that information. But what I mean to say here is that if you can interface with a little piece of hardware, you can maybe have some kind of sensor on it, you can do something interesting with it, maybe even just pressing a button, then you can have some really cool software in the background that takes all the information that you get from this microcontroller and does something really cool with it. And again, the examples I usually like to use are something like, motion detection. You could do the facial detection and recognition script, and you don't need to buy something like this, which is called the Jetson Nano. It's actually a NVIDIA product, which has a GPU on it. That's why it's got that heat sink in the fan there. You get something like a Raspberry Pi. You can get an Arduino. There's all kinds of cheaper microcontrollers that are only like 15 or 20 bucks if you can afford that in times like this, that are a lot of fun, and you can do a lot of cool stuff with them. And they actually have all these pins on the side, which are called GPIO pins. And what those allow you to do is actually control the voltage that goes to those pins from the microcontroller. So say you want to set up, a little circuit to it, you want to create a little more intricate kind of program or project. I'm sure some of you know a lot more about electronics than I do. Then you can do that with a board like this, and it really opens up the possibilities for the kind of projects you can create, especially if you like to see how they're working and see them kind of running, in the actual physical world as opposed to just on your computer screen. A lot of people make robots with these things. The possibilities are endless. Google best Raspberry Pi projects or something like that, and you'll find an entire list of amazing things to work on. So my fourth project idea is to implement a machine learning and artificial intelligence model into some kind of project. Now, I'll give you a few examples near the end of this section, but just hear me out here. So if you don't know much about machine learning, obviously that's going to be the first step, is learning a bit about machine learning, picking something that you think is interesting, and then picking a project that you can apply that to. Now, for any of you that are getting started, you want to figure out, well, how can I even get a machine learning model up and running? I personally have a ton of different tutorials on how to do that, but a great resource and a website to go to is actually the TensorFlow website. So TensorFlow is a very popular machine learning and AI framework. It's usually used with Python, although they do have a JavaScript framework as well, and I believe they might have one for Java and some other languages too. But what it does on the website there is it has a ton of awesome guides and tutorials that walk you through almost an entire project that has to deal with machine learning and AI. So what this is going to do for you is show you exactly how to get this model set up, how to train the model, how it works, but I will warn you that it is a little bit vague on some of the explanations. So what I usually like to do is I go to the website, I copy down all the code, make sure that this thing is working, and then I go back and I try to understand how each individual component is working and look up some things on the side, watch some videos, and figure out how this actually works. Some examples of some things that I've done in terms of integrating or implementing models into projects is something with the MNIST digit dataset. What I actually did is I made a Pygame interface in Python that allowed you to draw a digit with the mouse, like a 0, a 7, a 1, whatever you want to draw, and then it would feed that pixel data to my machine learning model, which I pretty much had just copied exactly from the TensorFlow website. Then it would spit out and tell me what number it thought that I drew. And this was actually pretty accurate. It worked pretty well. It was my first experience experience actually implementing this into a project. And the reason this is great is because it's some tangible thing that you can actually use to interface with your model. It makes it a little bit more interesting than just having this text-based accuracy score that you see in so many different tutorials and guides. And it's just a really great thing to be like, yeah, not only do I know how this works, I can implement it and I can integrate it into some kind of project. All right, so the last project that I recommend to everyone, and probably my personal favorite to work on, is recreating an Atari game. Now, the reason I say Atari is because these are typically easier, kind of pixel-based games that most people can figure out how to make, and there's so many resources online, at least for the texture packs for them, for some of the graphics, and just is really easy to make, like, you know, a version of Tetris or Snake, or these simple kind of games that still do teach you a lot about programming and are always fun and interesting to recreate. So that is my last project idea for you. You know, if you're working in Python, you can use something like Pygame. Maybe this is a good opportunity to explore something like Unity. So Unity is actually where you can make 3D games, and I know there's a ton of videos online and tutorials from Unity themselves on how to do that. Maybe you want to explore something like augmented reality. I know you can do that in Unity as well. And it's just a great opportunity to, you know, mess around, make some fun games, and play them and share them with your friends or family or whoever you may be isolated or quarantined with. So those have been my 5 programming projects to work on while you're quarantined. Now again, guys, I know these times are tough. I know a lot of you are upset. I know a lot of things that are horrible are going around in the world, yet that doesn't mean we can't take advantage of the spare time that we have. I see far too often that people get very upset, they get very sad, they sit on the couch, they watch Netflix all day. Although that's reasonable and it makes sense to me, I think that if we can take advantage and try to see the positives in these times, we're only going to come out better from them, and that's what I encourage you all to do. So anyways, that has been this video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and as always, leave some other video ideas that you'd like to see in the comments down below.